In late September, Canada Post workers walked off the job in a nationwide strike, the second major one in less than a year. For most headlines, that's the story. Another labor dispute, another delay in getting your packages. But there's a bigger question here that is not being discussed enough. Is Canada Post being deliberately weakened so that private couriers can take over? And what would happen to millions of Canadians if this essential service disappeared? Here's a short recap of what's been happening. Mail volumes have been falling for years. At the same time, Canada keeps adding new addresses, more households, more delivery points, which means higher costs. The result? Losses are ballooning. In just the second quarter of this year, Canada Post reported a $407 million loss. Since 2018, the service has lost billions. To stop the bleeding, management and the government have proposed big reforms, ending most door-to-door delivery, closing or consolidating rural post offices, and shifting more people to community mailboxes. Workers argue this guts public service and punishes remote communities. Management says it's the only way to keep the system alive. That's where most news coverage ends. But dig a little deeper, and things start to look less like an unfortunate financial reality and more like a structural problem with some very uncomfortable conflicts of interest. So here's where things start to raise eyebrows. Canada Post isn't just any company. It's a crown corporation, meant to serve everyone in the country, no matter where they live. But when you look at its leadership and financials, it's hard not to wonder if the incentives are aligned with that mission. The CEO, Doug Ettinger, earns over $500,000 a year. His official pay band runs from about $507,000 to $596,000. And Canada Post has a large team of senior executives, with many vice presidents. While we couldn't find a full public payroll for each of them, third-party data puts VP-level pay in the $250,000 to $300,000 range, sometimes higher. Now there's nothing unusual about executives at big corporations earning a lot of money, except that Canada Post has been reporting huge losses for years. In 2024 alone, it lost nearly $1.3 billion from operations, bringing its cumulative losses since 2018 to over $4.5 billion. So you have a situation where everyday workers are on strike, the service itself is in financial freefall, and yet the executive tier at the top is still taking home corporate-level pay. That doesn't prove corruption or bad faith, but it does raise the question, are these executives focused on maintaining universal service? Or are they thinking more like profit-driven managers running down an outdated business model? And if the public service is allowed to decline, if people see it as unreliable, outdated, not worth saving, who benefits? Private couriers, including conveniently the one that Canada Post already owns most of. We can't prove executives are deliberately running down Canada Post, but the structure creates all the wrong incentives, and that alone should raise eyebrows. On paper, privatization sounds simple. Cut costs, run like a business, let the market decide. But here's the problem. Businesses exist to maximize profit, not to serve everyone. If you live in downtown Toronto or Vancouver, private couriers will be more than happy to take your money. But if you live in a rural First Nations community, on a farm in Saskatchewan, or in a small town in Newfoundland, serving you isn't profitable, which means you'll either pay dramatically higher fees or you'll lose service entirely. And this isn't hypothetical. In the UK, when Royal Mail was privatized, prices rose sharply and rural delivery suffered. In the US, private couriers like FedEx and UPS still refuse to deliver to many remote areas. And guess who they subcontract to? The public service, USPS. That's the thing about public infrastructure. It's not meant to turn a profit. It's meant to connect people, especially the people who would otherwise be left behind. Imagine being told that your online prescription refill will now cost significantly more to ship because you live outside the city, or that your community library can't get books delivered anymore without paying premium courier rates, or that a northern town has to wait weeks for essentials because no private company finds it worth their while. Privatization always promises efficiency, but what it really means is stripping away unprofitable services. In other words, if you're expensive to serve, too bad. If you're profitable, you're golden. That's not a postal system. That's a business model that puts profit ahead of people. And it's important to say, this isn't just about a few overpaid executives. Canada Post is a crown corporation. The federal government is the sole shareholder. Policy and regulation shape everything, from how much it can charge for postage to whether it gets the funding it needs to modernize. The crisis at Canada Post is political. Starve the service, cap its revenue, refuse to invest, and of course it looks unsustainable. That's a choice. Just like it's a choice to treat mail delivery as infrastructure, like roads, healthcare, or transit, instead of just another profit-making business. So, when you hear about the strike, don't just think, my package is late. Think bigger. This is about whether essential public services survive in a world where profit always comes first. Because if Canada Post collapses, millions of Canadians, especially in rural areas, will pay the price. And once it's gone, you can't just bring it back. The real question is, do we want a postal system that serves everyone, or one that only serves those who can pay? What do you think? Should Canada Post stay public? Leave a comment and don't forget to like and subscribe.